Hey, I'm Nick.
And I'm Kari.
You may remember us from such films as the Up Pot Guide for Seed Starts and Transplants and How to Patch Insect Nets on Greenhouses.
And today we're going to show you how to build a DIY low tunnel kit.
So here's what you're going to need. A 4-foot bender from Bootstrap Farmer, crescent wrench, or a socket, or put a socket on a drill. Some type of saw to cut the EMT. You'll also need a permanent marker and a tape measure. And in the Bootstrap Farmer kit, 3/4 inch cross connectors, 3/4 inch EMT splicers, and snap clamps, as well as some number 8 self-tap screws. To purchase locally, 10-foot sticks of EMT.
For the 10-foot tunnel, you need 8 3/4 inch EMT. And for the 20-foot tunnel, you need 15 3/4 EMT. And the other option to buy local is the 1 inch by 1 foot rebar pin.
The DIY low tunnel comes in a 20-foot or 10-foot long variant. Both are 4 foot, and it's perfect for 6mm greenhouse plastic in the winter,
Insect netting.
or shade cloth in the summer. Let's get to building.
We're going to start by marking our EMTs for our hoops at 22.5 inches and 46.5 inches on both ends. To make our hoops, we're going to use our 4-foot hoop bender. You're going to place it in and take your first 22.5 inch, line it up with the collar, and then pull down until you touch this end of the bender. And then slide down to your 46.5 inch mark and bend again. Take the pole out, flip it around, put it back in, line up your 22.5 inch mark with the collar, and bend. Scoot it down to that last 46.5 inch and do your last bend. And there you go.
Now that Kari has the 4 hoops bent, we will gather up 3 pieces of 10-foot EMT. I also cut 2 pieces of 3/4 inch EMT to 52 inches. So that gives us 48 inches for our 4-foot bed and plus 2 inches on either side to attach these 3/4 inch cross connectors, in which we'll also mount what's going to become the ridge pole and the sides. And we're going to start that right now. So what I want you to do moving forward is just think of this as a mini greenhouse. There's going to be a ridge pole, there's going to be 2 baseboards, and then we'll have a little end wall situation. So we're going to begin by putting this 3/4 cross connector in the center, or roughly the center of the hoop, and then we can slide the ridge pole in right there. And your helper is just going to hold that up temporarily, and then I'm going to go on the other side and do the same thing over here, and then we have a stable structure that we can work on moving forward. So if you notice, I do like to put the side with the threads and the nuts and everything right there on the inside, just a little bit more protected. And all you need is like a 1/2 inch on the outside of the structure, just so the cross connector has a little bit to bite into. Just a reminder, it's a lot easier to put a 3/8 inch adapter on your drill that accepts your deep socket 9/16 for these nuts. Don't crank the nuts down on one side all the way. Just do it evenly a little bit, and that puts a nice even pressure without it getting bent or anything like that.
So across our 10-foot ridge pole, we've marked 41 inches from each side, just so that we can kind of evenly put those 2 hoops that we have remaining on there. So to attach those, you'll want to take the base plate and the nuts off of your cross connector and then connect it from here.
So you just slip it around, and you're going to notice that as we go through these next few steps, that because these are hand bent, they're not perfectly uniform, but we're going to tie all that together and all that's going to disappear. So we're just going to repeat that step for the final hoop, and then we'll work on the end walls. Next, we're going to put on the baseboards. Very same thing like we did with the ridge pole. The EMT cross connector is going to slide over the pole. EMT will run through there. After you slide that down, you'll notice, again, this one's a little high because of the inconsistencies in hand bending. It's not the end of the world because all that gets adjusted, and here's how. Come take a closer look. So if you look down the line, these 3 hoops are right on the ground. But if you come closer and take a look at what I have going on here, this hoop is just a little bit tall. Just basically has to do with the hand bending of the arch. And so all we have to do to connect all this together and even everything out is, again, slide this piece to where you just have about 1/2 inch, just like up top. I'm about a finger width high on the ground, and then I'll secure the clamp. Be careful not to get your hand stuck and pinch your fingers. or your palms. Basically, every time we put a cross connector in place and secure it, everything gets squared up a little bit better. So we'll just keep on working the system. So now that we have that secured, I want to talk a little bit about the height of the baseboard. This little gap, I'm not worried about. We're going to be in the dirt. It's likely to be in a raised bed situation, but just know you will have a little gap. I would just fill it in with dirt or mulch, perhaps on both sides, but just something to keep in mind. Let's move on to the end walls. So with any Bootstrap Farmer hoop bender, whether that's a 4, a 6, a 10, 12, or 20, the hoop is just slightly wider than any of those measurements. And it's usually about 1 foot to 18 inches. This is dialed down for a 4-footer. We're currently at 50 inches. So we want to bring the hoop in just a little bit. That flexing of the hoop is what really gives us its strength. It kind of gives it some spring tension. So because we want a 4-foot hoop, I've cut it to 52 inches. That gives me roughly 2 inches on either side to go ahead and secure the clamp. But I want this at 48 inches because I don't have enough bite here and I'm still trying to get that 4-foot gap. So there's a couple things you can do. You and your partner can take this and push it in and try to secure that, but then you're working under the spring tension. It's awkward. You got a lot of stuff moving around. So I'm going to show you a tip my Uncle Fester showed me way back in the day, and I'll be glad to share it with you right now. So to take the tension out and to kind of give ourselves a clamp, we're going to use a ratchet strap. If you don't have any on your farm, it's time to get some. They're a great resource to have. So please hold that hook. I'm going to take the tail end. I'm going to put it in the ratchet strap itself. If you don't know how to use a ratchet strap, a lot of stuff on YouTube about it. Please learn how to do it the right way. And I'm going to pull that. And we're going to hook that up. I'm going to give myself a little bit of room to work. I'm going to pull. I'm going to pull. Now, all I have to do, I have my tape measure measured out. I'm just going to put some tension on there until we get to 48 inches. I'm going to slip the cross connector through the EMT just slightly above the baseboard. I'm going to slide this over, and then if you'll pan over, you can catch Kari catching the other side. Once that bar is secured, we can release the tension on the ratchet strap. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now that this side is secure, I wanted to point out that the gap on the end wall is bigger. I would rather the gap here be larger than on the side. We have less movement on the side to deal with, but when we start putting covers on, we do this folding action. There's a lot more material that's going to help cover up that space. So let's get to covering.
So now that you've got your low tunnel built, it's still portable. So if you need to move it from crop to crop, different times of the year, or if you need to get some equipment in here, a broad fork or anything like that, it's completely portable. You can just pick it up, move it out of the way.
So that's a 10-foot tunnel, but we also sell a 20-foot tunnel kit, and that is done by these extensions. This is a 3/4 inch EMT connector, and so we will connect those with a number 8 self-tapping screw, and for that portion you are going to want a 1/4 inch nut driver inside of your drill. Let's check that out. These 3/4 inch cross connectors simply slide into the EMT, and then whether you want to do 20 foot or 16 foot, 14 foot, 12 foot, you're just going to slide EMT extensions and basically continue on with the arches roughly every 3 to 4 foot on down the line. Make yourself another end wall. Now, this can go infinitely if you want. Just know that the more EMT that you put on there, the heavier, the more awkward it's going to be. I do suggest if you have like 100-foot beds that you're trying to cover, that you may want to consider breaking those up into 20-foot increments, or just depending on what your farm looks like. The 10-foot also can be cut down to 8-foot if you have like a 4x8 bed at your house. So it's infinitely expandable or contractible. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Contractible. C-O-N-T. Real quick, just to connect them, again, we're going to use the number 8 self-tapping screw. We're going to put that in there. I'm going to drill from the side because some of this is going to be covered with plastic that we don't want to tear. Then we do the same thing on the other side. And remember, this is sleeved on the outside, so it needs to go on the EMT part. So the insect netting that comes with the kit is 6.5 feet wide, 33 foot long. Obviously, this is a 10-foot EMT bar. It's not going to go all the way across. So what you're going to want to do is take and do about 4, maybe 5 feet worth to do your end wall. And then we're going to take this side, going to come over the top, and I'm looking to just barely touch the ground on the other side. Now, this stretches, so I do like the stretching mechanism of this. That way it's nice and tight. Once you get to this end and you have that long tail, you're simply going to cut it and use that piece for the other side. But it's time to secure this. I know that I'm going to overlap this. I know that I have plenty of room for the bottom, so I'm just going to do the overlap. I'm going to take the snap clamps and I'm going to roll it in on that side. Give it a little snug pull, roll it on over here. Then I'm going to go down to the base. And then my partner on the other side, she can now pull hers to make this super tight in the middle, tight enough without being stretched out, and then we'll secure that side. Now that that's tight, I'm just going to put a couple of snap clamps along the baseboard just to secure the sides. So a couple things to think about. You're going to want that prevailing wind to wrap over the low tunnel, which is going to be this side. It's a little bit counterintuitive because we don't have the other side up yet. But whenever we put that over, we're going to overlap it, adjust for the bottom like we did on the other side, and we're going to clamp this right here, securing both sides of the insect netting. The next thing I want to talk about is just how easy it is to use these in case you need to move them once you got them secured. So again, I like to take them and roll them onto the EMT and then just peel them off if you need to adjust.
So for your end walls, you're gonna find the tail that's the longest and you're gonna fold that first and make a pleat over here in the corner, kind of like a Christmas present. Wrap that around, pull it tight, pull this top tight, and put your snap clamp on there. And then you're gonna come around to the other one, kind of do the same thing. And this one, you're gonna pull it over a little bit further over. Pull it all the way over. Add that clamp. And then with all this extra fabric, you can kind of fold that under. And if you have like a sandbag or something like that, you can place that on there just to keep it weighted down.
And a bit ago, we talked about this gap is going to be a little bit bigger. This extra fabric can be tucked. And like Kari said, the sandbag is a good way to hide that. But again, you may want to think about a little bit of extra mulch or dirt on the end walls.
So the insect netting is great for spring when the bugs start coming out and start going after your crops. This will protect your crops from those bugs. It'll also protect from rainfall so that the rain doesn't just plummet your plants, kind of protects it a little bit. And when it comes time for summer and you're ready to put some shade cloth on, you can put it on right on top.
As you're putting the shade cloth on one side, we're going to bring it all the way to the ground. We're going to have a lot of room to work. The shade cloth, again, this is for a greenhouse. It's slightly wider than what you need. I would prefer that you use that extra width just to give yourself enough coverage on the ground, give yourself enough room to do your end walls. You do not have to secure this anywhere near as much as the insect netting. The wind is going to go right through it. It's not going to catch it like plastic would and flap about. It's just going to go right through. So it's still nice airflow for the plants. You have the additional benefit of the insect netting plus the shade. We'll trim off this side just a little bit, and then we're going to clamp this in place. If you need to trim the shade cloth, don't worry about fraying. This is a monofilament, so as you cut it, you don't have to worry about it unraveling or anything like that. So trim at will. So I secured this end wall. Now this is nice and tight. I can pull on this side. So we're going to come down and we're going to secure it with the same kind of envelope pleating method that we did with the insect netting. So you can probably do like 3 to 4 layers in between this and the EMT. That's the nice thing. It's flexible enough. So I'm going to pull down, really secure this part of the end wall, and then do the fold. You can either snap clamp them here, or you can just take the fold and again put a sandbag. If you think you want to open this up, maybe you have some irrigation, maybe you want to just be able to see a little bit better, the sandbag, you can pick it up, easily open it up, just one clamp. If you're not going to do that, you'll simply pleat it and put a clamp here, pleat it and put a clamp there. And again, you don't have to worry about this bunching up or holding water because it's a net. It's not going to catch wind or anything like that. You can just roll it. And again, knowing that we were going to have all this extra material, I'm not worried about that gap from before.
Okay, now we're going to fast forward through the seasons to the end of the year when it starts to get a little colder. We've got some brassicas coming in here. So we're going to take all the summer covers off and we're going to put greenhouse plastic on top of it instead to help protect those plants in the colder part of the year. You want to make sure when you take off your insect netting and your shade cloth that you're storing it properly. Get some plastic totes and store it in there. You'd be surprised how many phone calls we get of customer service of somebody who didn't store their shade cloth properly. Critters got in, tore it apart. Now they have to get something new. So make sure you store them properly.
So on the storage tip, before you put that in the box and cover it with the lid for the season, don't be that person that leaves these out in the field and then they get buried and then they get lost and you have to call us and buy them again. You're going to use these the next time you put this out, put them back in the same box. We took off the insect netting and we folded it up and we're fixing to store it. And listen, as you're moving things around and as the season progresses, you're eventually going to get a hole. And luckily for you, Betsy Ross here shot a video about how to repair insect netting, and you can see that in the tab up above. So when it comes to wintertime coverings, you have two options. Number one, you have this plastic, which I want you to keep in mind that if it's going to be that cold to justify putting the plastic on, or you're up north and you have an extended cold season, that as the sun comes up, it's likely that because given the low volume of a low tunnel, that it's going to heat up super fast. So you're not going to want to put a snap clamp like all over the place, because more than likely we send this with so much tail for the sides that a couple of sandbags, a piece of pipe, something like that, you can take it off, take the plastic off to vent in case it's a super sunny day or you have some hot temperatures come through. The other version is frost blankets, which we're not going to show in this video because we went into great length in the video in the tab above about frost blankets in low tunnels last year, and that's the same valid information. Just know it's a variant for this kit option. So right now we're just going to talk about the plastic. We've already laid the plastic out. It's on the side. We're going to just basically cover it over like a wave. And just note that this inside is going to be able to go on the inside. Like if you were crawled in the tunnel and looked up, you should be able to read inside, not read the inside from the top. So we're going to basically take this over, fold it up, and then start securing. So one thing that you might do is just secure the ends on one side. That makes sense, and that way you're always taking the plastic off on one side. That way you don't have to undo sandbags on this side, run around, do sandbags on this side. So we're gonna make this our permanent side, and we'll make this where we can undeploy the plastic with just a couple of movements. One thing to think about is as you're securing one side, I would secure the side, again, you really want to pay attention to where that prevailing wind is coming from. So if the wind is coming this side, let's make this one extra secure, and let's keep our loose side on the other side. So when it comes to the top, I want you to, again, think of the analogy that this is just a miniature greenhouse. I would put the plastic on exactly like I would a big tall structure. And so I'm going to keep it tight, and I'm just going to secure this one side first. And I'm going to put 4 snap clamps, one at the bottom that's already there, 2, and then 1 on the bottom of the other side. We're going to come over here and we're going to pull very hard and keep this as tight as possible, and then secure that end wall. So I've got the pleats down, I've taken the excess and I've bunched it up and rolled it, and I've stuffed it under that bar that's just a little bit taller. It's the exact same thing that we did with the shade cloth.
And now you're covered for rain, frost, shade, insects, everything you need in one versatile kit.
If you want to see what we're going to be building next, please subscribe and like and share this with all your folks, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks.